welcome to the Book Bunch. I hope you guys have had a great week and I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say about this video as well, because I don't know, it might be a little bit controversial, I'm not too sure, but today we are talking about the Poppy War series, which I know is a super popular series in the fantasy realm and the booktube space. Everyone seems to love this series and give it a 5 out of 5, but I don't know how I feel about it. I just finished reading it and man, I've never read anything so dark and so I don't even know what the word would be, but like so full of villains, I guess. So this series, it follows a girl named Rin, and she comes from the south of this land, this kingdom, and she is an orphan who was raised by this awful family, and you find out all about it in the first book because she is trying to escape them by passing a test which will get her into Cinegrad's military school. And so she goes through her exams and she gets into this military school and she trains to become a warrior because the empire that she lives in is at war. It is their third, what is dubbed Poppy War. And yeah, she is kind of raised in all the different military strategies, ways of fighting, all of the rest of it. And for her elective, she chooses law, which is very unusual because there's only ever one law student at a time, as in L-O-R-E, not L-A-W. So L-O-R-E student. And you kind of have to convince the professor to take you on because he won't just take anyone. And she convinces him to take her on in law, and all of this stuff happens. And I will give a little bit of a spoiler because it is a common thing throughout the whole series, and if you've heard anyone talk about it, you'll know, but there is magic in this world, or what they call gods, which is gods with a lowercase g, and they normally reside in the Pantheon, which is like this other realm where they are all balanced, but people can learn to cool the gods down, and they basically get possessed by the gods or share their brain with the gods, and the gods are always trying to wreak chaos pretty much, depending on the god that has been called down. And all the gods have different powers and stuff like that. And she ends up being possessed by the Phoenix god, and he's the god of fire and flame and chaos. And she is trying to fight this war. And she finds out all this stuff, tragic stuff about her heritage and how poorly she's treated and anything. And she lets rage kind of fuel her and all of her decisions. And man, yeah, it is so dark, and it's just full of so much hate and evil that I was quite shocked in some of the things, because I didn't really know how it ended. I thought it would end happy, like most things nowadays do end with some kind of glimmer of hope, but this really doesn't. This book is a testament to villainy, and I don't know, like, it's hard to explain, but for example, someone did a review on the last book and they said it's a punch to the gut fantasy has needed for a long time. So it's basically meant to be this, like, it's deliberately this way is what I'm trying to say. The author was trying to show what it would be like if we did let chaos rule, and if there was no one to rein in the chaos, and how if you give in to the evil, what that does to you and the world around you and the people you love, and how if everyone chooses the worst thing they could choose, how that turns out for everybody involved. Because throughout this book, like, everyone that could make a bad choice makes a bad choice, and everyone that could be loving or caring or anything, they end up being evil in some way, whether that be they betray someone, they get a whole bunch of people killed, they give up, I don't know, like there's all sorts of just bad choices that are made throughout this series. And it does have a very strong undertone of cultural discrimination, religious discrimination, and probably a few other things in there too. For example, there is a very strong voice about the difference between the light skin and the dark skin, and how the dark skin in this world are treated very poorly. They are treated as lesser, as dirt and mud, and they're called that. And even their legends and their myths and their religions and stuff teach that, that the creation of the world came about because, like, with the white people being more important than the dark-skinned people, and all of this stuff, which there's definitely parallels to real life, but I do think it is a little bit taken to the extreme in this series. For example, there is these people who come called the, forgotten now, but I think they're called the Hyperions or something. And they are like these outsiders, and they come in and they're all very light-skinned. They follow a one true God, or they claim to follow one true God. They're very advanced in technology, and it's meant to be, I believe, very reminiscent of when the British came and kind of took over Asia and conquered a lot of those kind of things. It's meant to be reminiscent of that, of how they brought their technology and their Catholicism and all the rest. However, I obviously wasn't there, so I can't say this for certain, but I do feel like she used this series to take a jab at that, in regards to, she portrays them as very evil people who just discriminate regardless, and that there's no good in any of them, and that they, if you don't follow their ways and their religion, that they've come and invaded you to give you that, like, you will be killed and you're not worth it. And all of these white people that come in their religion, it says that they are the superior, and no matter what these other people do, they will never reach the level of superiority that these, like, white foreigners have. And just, there's a lot of that kind of undertone going on, and some of it's not even undertone, it's like straight up blatant right there, plain as day. And I don't know, like, I know that's obviously very based on real situations, but I do feel like it's maybe pushed to the extreme in some ways, because I know, like, for at least a lot of Christians, at least nowadays Christians, they don't have that view. Like, I would never think that just because someone is a different skin tone to me, that they are a lesser human being, or that they will never be worthy, or that they have to do extra above and beyond to be worthy, or anything like that. And I would never I would never want to take away or strip down someone else's religion when they have made their choice. Like, I'm happy to come and share my faith with you, but it's your choice, and if you don't choose that, that's fine. Like, I'm not going to sit there and berate you for that choice or make you feel lesser for doing so. And I know that, like, this story doesn't allow for any of that. So just be cautious of that, because again, it's fantasy and the author is allowed to take whatever liberties that they want to take. They have free reign over that, and that is fine and good. But I just want people to be aware when you're reading it that as much as it is grounded in reality, it is still fantasy, and some things have been taken to the extreme by the author. And I'm not saying that means you shouldn't read it either, because I read it. But yeah, I'm just letting you be aware, because I didn't know it had any of that kind of content in it before picking it up. I didn't know anything about it before I picked it up. I just picked it up because I heard everyone was reading it. But yes, I did think though, and this is something that I have been trying to branch more into, is I did enjoy reading about Asian beliefs in this, and because I'm assuming a lot of that was based in real myths, real legends, real religions, and all of that kind of stuff, at least real cultural depictions and all of that kind of thing. And I found that so interesting. I really like that Asian culture and all the different subcultures within that. I find so interesting, and so I enjoyed strongly that part of it. I also liked Kate, which is one of the characters. It's the main character's best friend. I did like him, and he was pretty much the only voice of reason throughout the whole book. But yeah, there is a lot in here that made me very upset with people's choices, and I was disappointed with the main character, but I also think that is the point. It's like reading a Shakespeare where you know it's a tragedy and you walk away feeling depressed from it and sad by it. It's meant to evoke those feelings. So I think in that regard, it 100% did its job. So I also think that should be taken into account as well. I also love these covers. I think they're really beautiful. I think they're really beautiful covers. But yeah, I don't know what I would rate it. I don't even know if I can rate it at this point, just because I haven't given enough time to sit with me. Because I remember when I read the first one, because I read the first one like almost a year ago, if not a year ago. And I remember putting it down and being like, I can't read on. Like, I can't read on. I didn't like it, whatever. Like, the way it ended, I was just so like angry by it. And then like the last couple of weeks, I just couldn't stop thinking about it, and I was like, oh, I really do actually want to see where it goes and how it ends and everything. And so I just plowed through these 2 books in 2 days. So I don't know, it's one of those things that like it evokes such strong feelings that it's hard to sift through them without just letting long periods of time pass for you to go through it within yourself. I do think it was good though. Oh, the only things as well you should be aware of if you're going to read it, there is strong language, which I do think detracts from the story, purely because when it's such heavy fantasy, I feel as though the authors should make up fantasy swear words. Because when you put real life swear words into a fantasy world that is fully enriched and developed, it jars you and it pulls you out of the story a little bit. And so I didn't like that part of it. So it would never be a 5 out of 5 stars for me just because of that. Like, at most it would be a 4.5. But again, I don't even know if I can give it that just because I need some time to pass. I do like it though. But there is definitely heavy content in there. Like there is definitely content warnings for rape, murder, very strong violence, a lot of gore, genocide, a few other things. Yeah, there's some hugely heavy topics talked about here, but again, it's dark fantasy. This is dark fantasy, and you need to be aware of that going in. I didn't know it was dark fantasy when I picked it up, and it's not till I started reading that I realized that it was. I don't know if I would ever read dark fantasy again, but yeah, I don't know. It was like watching a train wreck happen. A very deliberate train wreck happen that you couldn't stop. But I don't know. You know how you watch something tragic happen but you can't look away? It's kind of like that. It was very tragic and horrible, and all this evil and horrible was happening, but I couldn't stop reading it because I just needed to know where it ended, and I needed to know, I guess, the extent to which the author would go, if that makes any sense. And she definitely went as far as she could go. So be aware of that. Be cautious if you're going to read it, just because of all the content warnings and everything else. Oh, there's also heavy drug use. That was the other thing, because the Poppy War is in regards to opioids. So be aware of that as well. Definitely not okay for children. You definitely need to be probably at least 20 before you pick this up. Like, I don't even know if I'd give this to an 18-year-old. Even though, yes, you're an adult if you're 18, at least in Australia. I don't even know that it would be healthy for you to read it, if that makes sense. Like, this plays a number on your heart and your soul and your mind. And so I think you would need to be a very mature person to read it and not let it affect you, if that makes sense. So just be aware of that. Again, a lot of warnings with this one, but I can't say it's a no, and I can't say it's a yes. It is a read at your own pace, and also read it in mind of everything that I have said, is what I will say, because I don't think it's for everyone, and I wouldn't say that it's Christian friendly, but again, that depends on where your tolerances are. I don't know. I'll leave it up to you guys, but that is the Poppy War series. I hope that you enjoyed this video. I know it's a little bit all over the place with my opinions about it, but I think if you've read the series, you will understand what I'm saying, because you'll feel the same, like at least similarly. But yeah, I hope you guys have a great week, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!